Hello, friends. My name is Elle, and this is Linda, and you are watching the Grow Curriculum Deep Dive for the series called Famous from Grow Kids Volume 5. What we're going to do in this deep dive is we're going to give you like a big picture look at the series so that you know what to expect. But then we're going to get really specific and kind of focus in on a few details because there's some really fun stuff in the series that we really don't want you to miss.
And if you're a Grow user, like our goal is for you to get a head start in preparing for the series. That's why we're doing this now. And if you're not a Grow user, that's okay too. Feel free to steal some of these wonderful ideas. And we're going to look over four main things today. So the first thing is we're going to do an overview of this series for this next month. And then we're going to look at the theme on how you're going to decorate and how a lot of the activities are structured around a specific theme. And then we'll talk about the structure and some things that make this particular series a little bit unique. And then finally, we'll just give you some tips on how you can take everything we talked about and you can get started.
Love it. All right, let's do it. Okay, so Famous is a series that is all about Solomon. We're going to look at like his origin story, his early life, how he like ascended to the throne, and then also some of the challenges that our pale Solomon faced along the way as king.
And the interesting thing about this series is that we're treating Solomon and his family like they're famous royals and we're following their story in real time as though it's like the biggest celebrity gossip of the day. So if you look at the Bible story each week, we're going to be teaching it in different ways, like a press conference or a late night talk show, a Google search interview, even, and live news reporting like outside some big events, and also red carpet interviews. So it's going to be super fun.
I love that. That's going to be so fun. So let's look at each of these weeks. We'll kind of go one by one. So the first week, this is where we're talking about actually the story of David and Bathsheba. We're not going to go into a ton of detail there because we're talking to kids here. But the main focus that we're going to do here, and this is kind of pre-Solomon, obviously, we're going to talk about the time that Nathan confronted King David about his sin. So really, this is all about like accountability, about repentance. So the big idea here is that when we make mistakes, we can make things right.
So in week two, we're going to fast forward a little bit and we're going to look at the story of Adoniah, who was one of Solomon's half brothers, who tried to take the throne by force. And it was actually rightfully Solomon's, as decreed by David. And so it would have ended really badly for Solomon and Bathsheba if he had succeeded, if Adoniah had succeeded, that is. And so they find an unlikely ally in the prophet Nathan, and they're able to actually name Solomon as king instead. So that's why the big idea for that week is when we feel alone, God gives us friends.
Love it. Then in week three, we're going to talk about how when Solomon actually became king, he very quickly realized that he did not know everything, which was a very good realization. And so, what Solomon did, as we all know, he actually asked God to give him wisdom. So, the big idea for this week is that when we need help, we can ask for God's guidance.
The next story about Solomon we're going to talk about in week four is how he was giving thanks to God after he built the temple. And this was a big moment for him because this was something that God had promised to his father David, that one of his sons would, in fact, build this temple. And Solomon actually had the honor of doing that. So we're going to remind kids with this story that when we are thankful, we can give God what we have.
And then we're going to finish off the whole series in week 5, which, by the way, this is a 5-week series because there are 5 Sundays in this month in the year of 2021. So we're going to finish off the series by talking about the time that Solomon visited with the Queen of Sheba, who was very rich and very famous and wealthy and powerful. But what's interesting about this story is that Solomon was kind of unfazed by that, and she was very impressed by Solomon. So it's just kind of an interesting conversation where we can talk about how the big idea is when you're loved by God, you don't actually need to be liked by everyone.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to teach kids. And that's something that you're going to see consistently throughout the series. That we're talking about a lot of Bible stories that maybe they're not super familiar with, but the takeaways from that are just so amazing. And we can get kids really focused on some things that they go through in their everyday lives, such as making mistakes and learning that it doesn't end with just saying, I'm sorry, or recognizing who their true friends are and how to find allies when they need it, and also how to be allies themselves, and also being unsure of where to go for solid guidance and where who can they turn to. and also learning to be thankful and expressing their gratitude in tangible ways instead of just being like, oh, thanks. And then lastly, too, like what we just talked about, is not seeking validation from others, especially social media, to affirm their worth. And I think this is something that's going to be applicable across the board.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're since this is like an Old Testament series, we wanted to put a New Testament Bible verse as our memory verse for the month. So we're using 1 Corinthians 10:31 because this verse is all about giving God honor instead of giving honor to ourselves. So the verse is, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. All right, so now let's talk about the theme. And since the series is all about like famous people and famous royal people, the whole vibe of the series is going to be like a red carpet event. So from the graphics to the games and activities we play, like the room design, the music, everything that we do in the series is all about like movie stars, celebrities, Academy Awards, paparazzi, everything Hollywood basically is what we're doing here.
So I'm super excited about this theme because I live in LA, so Hollywood is kind of my backyard. And so I want to go over some of the elements of our programming guide with you. If you look at it, we provide it in your programming folder. And if you see some of the photos, you'll get an idea of how to set up your space and some elements you want to put in there. Basically, you get to set up your space like you're throwing an Oscar party. So you might want to put in a red carpet, have a photo backdrop. There's some really cute popcorn centerpieces. Check that out. You can have clapboards and director chairs. You can have Oscar trophies for the kids, and basically decorate it however you think a movie party should go.
Okay, so next up, we want to talk about the structure of the series. If you've been using Grow for any length of time, hopefully you've seen that there is like a consistent structure to all of our weeks. For example, we have like three big sections. There's the what section, the so what section, and the now what section. So like that never changes. But hopefully you've also seen that within different series and sometimes within different weeks, the actual like structure and the different modules that we include, we try to change those up to keep it like interesting and fresh. So what we want to do is to kind of look at what is unique and interesting about this specific series. So Linda, you've got a few things that you wanted to point out that are interesting specifically about Famous.
Yeah, so in Famous, we have three modules that are recurring elements, and those are the big idea reveals, a reflection module, and a response module.
Yeah. So let me just explain what some of those are really quick. So the big idea reveals, first of all. So every week we give you a different unique big idea that's kind of like the quick summary of like the biblical truth that we're trying to communicate each week. But we want to always make that really fun when we reveal the big idea for the first time. So that's usually right around the time that we start introducing the Bible story. And we just try to keep it like interesting and fresh and try to keep it like on theme with the actual like series theme. So what does that look like in Famous?
Yeah, so in Famous, we have the Academy Award ceremony because it fits so nicely with the theme. So, what you're going to do is you're going to have an envelope with a big idea written in it each week and, play some music and make it super dramatic, dress up, put on a bow tie, tuxedo, what have you, and then open up the envelope and say, today's big idea is, and have kids give a big round of applause. I think it'll be super fun and you get to repeat it every single week.
I love it. That's great because sometimes it's hard to come up with a brand new idea every single week. But guys, we got you covered. This will be fun. Kids will start looking forward to it because that's just exciting. I love it. So that's the big idea reveal. Second thing you mentioned were the reflections, Linda. So in our curriculum, when we talk about a reflection time, what we are really trying to do here is to give kids an opportunity to like sit and think quietly. Maybe that is like in a conversation, or maybe they're possibly writing it down for our older kids. But basically, the idea is to sit and to think and personally reflect on something. And so that is consistent throughout the series. So, what does that look like?
Yes, so this series, each week, we're going to use the song Famous For by Torrin Wells, and we're going to do different things with it each week. But we're going to continue that sentence like famous for, and then whatever we're talking about for the big idea that week. And during that time, this is where we actually connect the story that we're talking about back to Jesus, because this is an Old Testament series. So we want them to think about, okay, well, God is famous for doing this, and he did all of this in the lives of Solomon and his family. And how does that look in the New Testament? So I think you'll find that really helpful for kids to
Mhm.
reflect on, and also take it back to how this applies to my life and my growth in Jesus.
Love it. That's going to be great. And then the last thing you mentioned were the responses. So when we have a response section in the curriculum, what we're trying to go for with the responses is kind of like the next step after a reflection. So it's really turning what you've learned into an application or into some form of action. So what does that look like for this series, Linda?
So for this series, each response section is we're going to make something called a response reel. Basically, the printable the kids are going to be using kind of looks like the film negative, right? Basically, and each week they're going to be responding to some sort of prompt you give them, and the titles are just a pun with the word real, like the struggle is real and real talk and keeping it real. It'll be super fun and punny if you appreciate puns. But what you're going to do with that is you're going to have kids do the same worksheet every week, and then you're going to put it together. So they'll have an entire like reel, response reel that they can take home at the end of 5 weeks.
That's so cute. I love when we do things that like build on itself, like over the course of the series. That
Yeah.
makes me so happy. Love it. So good. Okay, so we've already covered the overview of the series, the theme, and the structure. So the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just gonna leave you with some like final tips that could be about all sorts of things. So let's do that now. Okay, so our very first tip for you for this series is to check out all of the new features that are included in Volume 5 of Grow Kids. If you are following our scope and sequence, this will be your very first series in Volume 5. So it might be like your first experience with some of these new things. So, a couple things we wanted to highlight. First of all, we have volunteer devotionals now. So, every series you get one PDF. Or a Word document if you would like to edit it. And it's just like a handy devotional that you can give to your volunteers ahead of time to help them just kind of like prepare and study in advance of the series beginning. Second thing, we have a brand new layout for all of our hacks. So when we're doing like preteen hacks, if we're doing hacks for kids with special needs, toddler hacks, those are all formatted in a really cool new way that we think will be really practical and like useful to help you figure out how to actually implement these things. So make sure you check that out. We're pretty excited about it. And then also, as you're getting ready for the series, don't forget to promote it. We've given you some like actually new cool tools that we think will make this a little bit easier. So we have these series promo cards and then also promo posters that you can print and you can hang or in your space or like hand out. They have little QR codes on them already, and if you scan those, it actually takes you to like a web page that will kind of give parents or volunteers or whoever a look at what the series is about. So we've already done that for you, but again, if as always, if you want to edit it and make it go to somewhere else, like on your church website, you can edit that QR code. Do whatever you want with it. We're just giving you the files. But yeah, check that out because there's a ton of really fun new features for you to check out. So take a peek. Linda, what kind of tip do you have for the people?
I just want to say I'm personally really excited about these QR codes, because previously we had tried to implement them at our church, but a lot of our parents and older generation people, they didn't really want to use them. They're like, I don't know what this is. But thank you, pandemic, kind of, sort of, because now QR codes are everywhere. You need to scan it for a menu. So I think churches are coming more on board with new technology. So I love that so much. Yes. So, in addition to all of those wonderful things, one tip I would suggest for you is to get up to speed on the celebrities that your kids are currently infatuated with. They might not be who you think, or they might be exactly who you think, but it's good to kind of come from a place of, oh, yeah, I know who they are, instead of like, Ariana, who, right? And also, they will surprise you with some of their picks. Last time I was talking with our Sunday school kids, and I was just asking them, like, who are some famous people that you look up to? Who do you think are good leaders? And among like the long list of BTS members, they also said Gordon Ramsay of all people, which I thought was hilarious. They're like, Gordon Ramsay is an inspiration. So, yeah, and that's also why we don't provide a list of celebrities in this series because they change all the time. Sometimes they get canceled overnight, and
Right.
our kids might be in love with people we never would have thought.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I love that. And then while you're researching just current celebrities, you might also just want to get a little refresher on like the kings of the Old Testament, because of course that's what you're going to be teaching kids. So maybe just take a little peek. If you do need help, like finding resources to help you just get a refresher on what's going on with Solomon or just any of like that historical context, we recommend checking out the YouTube channel for Bible Project because they have a ton of like really cool, really well done and like nicely animated videos that are great to maybe show some of your older kids, but they're really good for you just to kind of help you get back into like that frame of mind of what's going on in these stories. So check that out if you need a little refresher. But yeah, friends, that's it. That is the deep dive for this month. We have talked about the series Famous from Grow Kids Volume 5. We're going to be doing this every month and coming back to do one of these videos for every series that we have. So we'll see you in the next one. Linda, thank you so much for your expertise. You are awesome. And friends, when you actually teach the series, we would love to see like the pictures, hear the stories, to see what you're doing to make this your own. So feel free, share all of that in our Facebook group, which you can find. It is called Stuff You Can Use, a children's ministry community. We would love to see what you're doing. Cool. All right, friends, have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.
Bye.